Hi, everybody. It's Greg and Arun. We're back with your NCAA football week 2 Saturday action. We've got all the games for you, all the games with lines, that is, as we record this on late Tuesday. It's Saturday, September 6th games we're looking at for college football week 2. And don't forget, if you haven't done so, don't forget to like and subscribe. And at the end of the video, make sure you click on all the other videos because we're going to have all the NFL games up, broken down by day. And, of course, we have the Friday college football up. So if you haven't done so, make sure you check out those videos as well. And put in the comments what you like for today. How about we do a little contest action? Let's do the premier game is Iowa State this week. You put who's going to win the game against the spread. So put what you like against the spread. And then the tiebreaker will be, we'll pick out one winner without total of points without going over. So make sure you put that in the comments section. Don't forget also that 10% off code to get our best plays. I'm going to have 8 or 9, maybe even 10 plays in football, both between college football and NFL. Use that promo code KICKOFF10. I know IC is going to have 6 as well. So you can get those $99 a week. And so you use the 10% off per capper. That ends up being $89. So for what, $180, you can get all of our 15-ish plays between IC and myself over at the website Doc Sports. Okay, let's get right to it. Free plays. San Jose State and Texas, 2 teams that lost last week. We see the line anywhere from 36.5 to 37. Let's call it Texas minus 37. Total 52 here. What do you like?
Well, San Jose State lost to Central Michigan 14-16. A lot was expected out of Coach Ken, the former Navy coach. And, they were 14-point favorites against Central Michigan. And Central Michigan, ended up winning. Obviously, you have a coach over there, Matt Drinkle, who replaced Jim McElwain, and who announced his retirement. It seems like all the old Alabama guys are retiring, including McElwain. But that was a tough loss for San Jose State. Maybe they were looking ahead to this game, but then you get Texas losing 7-14 against Ohio State. The funny thing is, if Texas ended up winning that game, this line would have been much lower. And then now you see this massive line here. This line is massive for a San Jose State team. That's not bad at all. You can look at it either way, but I just think that if Texas does not blow this team out, for the simple fact that San Jose State ended up losing to Central Michigan, that fan base is going to be ticked. I mean, people are calling for Kalen DeBoer's head right now. Yeah, no, I like Texas. The funny thing is I would have leaned on San Jose State, but I like Texas in this game. I think they have to blow this team out or else it's going to be bad news. I also think take a look at the under 2. I wouldn't be surprised if Texas defense locks down if this is something like a 42-6 type of game. So a small lean on Texas, small lean on the under. I hate that 70% is riding Texas. I just hate that. But, if you don't like that side, if you want to lay that 70%, take the under. The Mighty Owls of Kennesaw State facing Indiana as a 35.5 point dog. And the public, from what I can tell, 65% is riding Kennesaw State after that impressive performance, losing 9-10 against Wake Forest. And let it be known, I told you about Kennesaw State last week. I was like, Kennesaw State is not bad. What do you think, Craig, as far as Kennesaw State, the Owls, Indiana laying 35.5 on a total of 50.5?
I think this is a spot where Indiana says, we just want to win this game. We don't want to go out there and risk injury. They've got a lot bigger fish to fry after coming off what they did last year. And this will be a smaller game. We're just going to do on the smaller games. We'll do a little less just so we can try to keep this around an hour. I like Kennesaw State here. I don't think last week was a fluke. Like you said, I think this team's better than what people thought. And Indiana, I think they're not going to score more than 40 points. So that means all we got to do is get a touchdown or a couple field goals. So I think we can do that. Let's take the 35.5 with Kennesaw State. Next game, Virginia, NC State. One of the better matchups, I think, this week, especially the early games. NC State minus 3 total, 53.5. What do you like here, IC?
Well, Virginia comes off that nice win against Coastal Carolina. Really impressive win, 48-7. That was a game they were only favored by 13.5. And maybe Virginia is turning the corner here. NC State, beat ECU 24-17 in a rare situation where they play somebody in a bowl game and lose 21-26 and then play them immediately in the next game 24-17. But they failed to cover that spread, by the way, on a 13.5. Last year when these two teams haven't met since 2023. NC State won 24-21 and 38-21. It is interesting that Virginia comes in only as a 3-point dog. I think that says something about Tony Elliott in his 4th year here. He's got a decent offensive coordinator here, Desmond Kitchings. He's got a decent defensive coordinator in Don Brzezinski, all in their 4th season. So there's a lot of continuity here in this team. NC State, though, speaking of continuation, Dave Doran's been there in his 13th season. He's got 7 returning starters on defense over there. And I think this game could probably go either way. But I will tell you something. I like Virginia here. I think Tony Elliott's got a lot of pressure on him. I think this team's going to be better this year. I think the fact that they're returning, remember, this is a team that lost to Virginia Tech, SMU, and Notre Dame to close out last year, right? But they had beaten Pittsburgh. I think this team is better. I think Virginia showed a lot of faith in him by not firing him in his fourth year. So I like Virginia here, plus the points here. I think in a game that's kind of a toss-up here, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they're able to hang in. And remember, keep in mind that Virginia, by the way, has a dynamic playmaker in Cam Ross as well. I understand NC State's got a good defense, but they lack on offense. I'm back in Virginia here, plus the 3.
Don't forget, greatest value we have here at our YouTube is our YouTube Premium. You got level 1, just $4.99. You get early hookup on all of these videos we do here daily. Plus, Lenny gives you a free video every day, or a video every day. And then level 2 is Indian Cowboy, just $19.99. And you get level 1 included. And then level 3, you get all 3. You get 3 premium plays every day from some of our Doc Sports experts, including one of my expert plays directly off my card every day.
All right, Baylor facing SMU here. Baylor's a 2.5-point dog coming off that tough loss to Auburn, of course. SMU rolling in here, Craig, winning against TAMC 42-13, but not covering the 51 on a total of 65. Who do you like?
I like Baylor. I liked them last week. I was wrong. But I think Auburn's going to be better than what I thought after watching that game. I mean, you try to hold back a little bit on that because you can't overreact. But I think Baylor's the team, and I think that tells you that with the line being just 2.5. Remember, as good as the SMU was last year, they avoided Baylor last year. They didn't have to face them. So I think this is a matchup where we see Baylor play a little better. I thought they threw the ball way too many times. I think they ended up throwing 60 passes, maybe 64, something like that. They need to run the ball a little more. You don't want to be putting your defense out there this much. I think they will adjust this week. They also, remember, played on Fridays. They do have an extra day to recover here. I like Baylor plus the 2.5 points. Next game, we're looking at Liberty and Jacksonville State. Liberty favored by 6.5, total 52.5. What do you like here, IC?
I'm going to take Liberty here. A couple things here. I want you to know that Jacksonville State won 31-21 last year. That was a game in which, Liberty came in as a 2.5-point favorite, but Jacksonville State won on the road. Now, Liberty comes into this game beating Maine 28-7, but that game was not as comfortable as it looks like. It was 7-all going into the fourth quarter before Liberty ended up winning 28-7 because of 21 points in the fourth quarter. So 7-all going into the fourth quarter. You have Jacksonville State impressive against UCF, losing just 10-17 as a 20.5-point dog. Having said that, I don't see Liberty overlooking this team at all. Liberty played like dog poop last game, and you have a coaching staff here that I think returns quite a bit of decent players. I mean, Jacksonville State, of course, has a new leadership, right? Charles Kelly there, but I think this game it's really interesting. But I think what will end up happening here is that Jacksonville State has 50 new players on the roster. And even though they're pretty impressive, this is a game that Liberty has to win. I'm going to back Liberty minus the points here.
Use that 10% off promo code. This week's promo code to get 10% off daily, weekly, or even the full season passes for any sport. Kickoff 10. Make sure you get in on that and get in on Indian Cowboys, my play.
Iowa, Craig, facing Iowa State here. Iowa's obviously a +3 underdog coming in on a total of 41, which is a low total. Last year, Iowa State won 20-19 by 1 point, and that game actually went over. His total was listed at 36.5. Iowa, of course, beating Albany in their first game in Iowa State. After that, Iowa State's obviously 2-0, beating Kansas State and South Dakota. Who do you like, Craig?
I mean, this may be one of the more impressive teams so far. I mean, obviously, they've got the extra win in there, but I don't know how great that Kansas State was because Kansas State struggled this past week. But they've done everything that you'd want them to do. Beck does look great. Turnovers is his thing. If he can avoid turnovers, I think this Iowa State team could probably be a 10-plus win season. And so far, he's done that. He's being able to run the ball when he needs to. Like he makes good decisions, gets what he can. I think you take Iowa State here, minus the points. I know if you go back historically, the last 5 games, basically every game these teams play within a field goal, and you're having to lay a field goal. So I don't love that, but I don't trust Iowa. Kirk Ferentz's team. I still don't know if they can score points, and I know Iowa State is the better offense. So I'm going to small lean. Also think the under would be a good play in this one. I think the winning team's going to have 20. I think it's going to be like 20-13. I thought Iowa State would win. So that's what I have in this game. Now, next game, I see. This is not quite the time as that one, but it's Kent State at Texas Tech. Texas Tech is a good team. I think Texas Tech is going to fight for the Big 12 championship. 48 points they are favored here. A total of 58. What do you like here?
Yeah, I like Texas Tech. And, keep in mind that, these two teams have never met. Okay, so keep that in mind. And Kent State won 21-17 against Merrimack as a 5.5-point favorite, and that wasn't that impressive. So bear that in mind. That was a game where they were favored only by 5.5, so not much was expected out of Kent State facing Merrimack. Okay, so you combine this with the fact that Texas Tech just rolled Arkansas Pine Bluff 67-7. By the way, that spread was 55, and Texas Tech has no issues at all covering spreads. Okay, you have a Kent State team that's in a rebuilding phase with Mike Carney. I think they have a few offensive pieces returning, but they lost so much to the transfer portal, and their depth is pretty thin right now. Texas, of course, has Joey McGuire coming in, is in his 4th year. He's got a new offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator who both looking to prove things here. They got 12 great starters, 5 on offense and 7 on defense coming back. I agree with you. I think this could be ugly. And I think Kent State's a pretty well-known name. You know what I mean? That's where Nick Saban started his coaching career, if you will, in Toledo and Kent State. Got a pretty well-known name, dude, and it would look nice for Texas Tech to make some waves by demolishing Kent State by a wide margin. So I like Texas Tech here. Craig, Illinois facing Duke here. Illinois is a -3-point favorite on the road. Interesting game here. Obviously, these two teams have never met. Duke comes off that barn burner game against Elon where they won 45-17, but it looks sketchy at the half. It was 10-all at the half before they pulled away. Illinois rolls in here, winning nicely against Western Illinois by a score of 52-3. Who do you like, Craig?
I think Illinois is going to be a top 3-4 team in the Big Ten this year, and this is like a prove-it game. This is the type of that when Illinois, the last 2 decades, when they're supposed to win, they don't always do so. It's a new team. Brett Bielema is playing smash-mouth football and playing good defense like he did at Wisconsin. I think this is a show-it game. I think they take care of business. -3, I don't think it's going to be a problem. This might even make this might be like a 3 or 4 unit play, so you might be getting that. We always finalize the final plays on Wednesday or Thursday after we do the show, so sometimes you're getting premium plays, sometimes not. I think Manny Diaz and company is going to struggle. I think he'd like to play like Illinois does, like smash mouth football. They just don't have the horses as of yet. Maybe he will. I'm going to take the Illinois -3. I think they can put up 30 themselves here, and I think their defense is good enough to hold Duke in check. So let's take Illinois minus the points. Next game, Syracuse didn't look great last week, -7. They do get UConn this week, though. Can they cover the 7 here with a total of 58? What do you like here?
I like the over here. The total sits at 58, which of course is a little scary. Syracuse, of course, was down 14-31 at the half against Tennessee, and that game went well over. But I thought they played pretty well. I didn't think they played that bad. Connecticut rolls in up, obviously, with Coach Jim Mora, and he's in his 3rd year, and he's turned the program around. He's done a nice job. Joe Fagnano is the quarterback of Connecticut. And don't forget, Joe is in his 7th year as quarterback in college. That is phenomenal. That guy is living the life for certain. And then you have running Cam Edwards, who comes back as well. And then you have leading receiver Skylar Bell, who's back as well. Connecticut's got some pieces, especially on the offensive end. Syracuse here returns 50% of its offensive production, to be honest with you. But you have a decent number of wideouts and skill players that are pretty good. I just think both these defenses are probably going to struggle. And you're going to get Connecticut as an active dog. You're going to get Syracuse pissed off of the world. And when Syracuse wins, it's usually through the offensive end and not through the defensive end. Remember when they beat Miami, they beat them 42-38. Right? When they beat Cal, they beat them 33-25. They don't play as much defense as this is an offensive-minded team. I like the over here between Connecticut and Syracuse. Craig, Central Michigan is on the road at Pittsburgh as a 21.5-point dog on a total of 51.5. As far as these two teams have never met before, and you get both these teams here coming off a 1-0 start with Central Michigan beating San Jose State as a 2-touchdown underdog, winning outright. Pittsburgh destroying Duquesne 61-9. Who do you like?
Yeah, Matt Drinkle, what a start. You go beat, I think San Jose State's going to end up being a pretty good team this year, and go on the road and beat that, and then you have to come home, and then you have to travel again. That is a tough task. Pitt, of course, destroyed Duquesne. And remember, Central Michigan, their passing game was suspect a little last week. They did it. They had 101, I think, and a 99-yard rusher, so basically 200-yard rushers. And that's how they're going to have to control this clock, because this Pitt team, I think, can score some points. But it's a lot of points. It's a lot of points to cover. And Pitt's got, bigger fish to fry this season. I think they think in the hot start they had last year and then they kind of fell apart. They think they can keep it going a little farther this year, can maybe challenge for, the top maybe third or fourth spot in the ACC. Give me Central Michigan plus 21.5. I just think it's a little too many points for Pitt to cover against a Central Michigan team that I think defense will be up to task here. And I think the running game can control the clock a little bit. Next game we're looking at is another noon game. Penn State hosting in FIU. Penn State looked great last week. They're a 41.5 point favorite with the total of 54.5. What do you like here?
Yeah, I like Florida International here. What you see here is these two teams haven't met since 2007. Florida International has an impressive coach. Okay, and you know how much I like coaches, right? Sometimes it's more about the coaches than it is actually about the players. If your coach works hard, that usually translates, right? Like that Central Michigan, right? So I think what you have here is FIU welcomes, head coach Willie Simmons. Willie Simmons was impressive at Florida A&M. He was impressive at Prairie View A&M. Now he gets a shot at a pretty big school. Craig, FIU is a huge campus. It's a huge school. It kind of reminds me when UCF came onto the scene. They have a lot of students there. And, they're returning their full-time quarterback, right? Their original starter. And Penn State, of course, with James Franklin, his 12th year. You got Coach Andy in his second year in the offensive coordinator. You got his defensive coordinator is featuring Jim Knowles, first year as the DC there. And I think this game can, obviously, I know it's a huge line here, but I want you to know something. I want you to know that when Penn State opened up against Nevada, they were a 42.5 point favorite. It might surprise you that they're only a 41.5 point favorite here. And, Penn State might have obviously bigger fish to fry as well, right? After this game, they have Villanova on deck, and then after that is Oregon. So I think it's an interesting spot, but I like FIU here. I think they're going to be pretty feisty here. All right, Craig, Utah State facing Texas A&M. Utah State coming in as a 28.5 point dog on a total of 54.5. Both these teams are obviously 1-0. Utah State winning against UTEP 28-16. Texas A&M beating UTSA 42-24. Who do you like, Craig?
Well, this was one of the bad beats last week. If you had Texas A&M, UTSA scored with 10 seconds left. Got a couple a big fourth down conversion to even get down there. But I think this is a tough spot for Texas A&M. They have Notre Dame on tap next after this one. And last game, remember how great that was a kickoff game last year, how great it was at Texas A&M and a Notre Dame team that's already lost. So, they're going to be motivated. I think that is a big edge. I'm always a look ahead. This is a huge look ahead spot for Texas A&M. Utah State looked better. I really thought UTEP could beat them. That didn't happen. I think Utah State will be like that in that backdoor cover range, even if they're not covering late in the fourth quarter. And I think they'll get it done as Texas A&M's looking ahead. Let's take the 28.5 with Utah State.
Use the promo code KICKOFF10. It gives you 10% off any weekly, monthly, or season pass at any of our packages for Craig and myself. Just for watching these videos, you get a hookup, 10% off. And that promo code is KICKOFF10.
We have a couple games that we don't have lines for, so let's go to we're going to go at Cincinnati here. We got the My Bearcats 21-point favorite, hoping in we've got what's his name, what's the
Eddie George.
Eddie George is the head coach of Bowling Green. Total 46 in this one. Bearcats favored by 21. What do you like?
Well, Eddie George is a former Heisman winner. You knew that I was high on Eddie George coming in. He's got a decent offensive coordinator in Travis Partridge and a defensive coordinator, Brandon Fisher. And he's got 4 of the 5 starters return on the offensive line, which is a pretty big deal. You have Drew Pine, who's an experienced transfer from Notre Dame, is playing pretty well. Cincinnati, of course, with Scott Satterfield. Disappointing loss to Nebraska. I thought they played pretty well. The Bearcats, of course, returned 9 starters and 4 on offense and 5 on defense. Not bad at all. But I really like Bowling Green. I think Cincinnati, obviously, after this game, they got Northwestern State and then Kansas. But Bowling Green is going to be feisty. They are going to be a feisty team all year long, and they're going to punch above their weight. And I think that's similar to what Deshaun Jackson did with Delaware State, which is a game that I missed. But I think they're going to punch above their weight. And I think it's not like Cincinnati comes off a loss, and yet I still think Bowling Green is going to hang tough. I think this game means a lot to them. I'm backing Bowling Green State plus the 21 here. Craig, Troy plus 33.5 point underdog. If you don't know, Troy is in the state of Alabama, the great state of Alabama, as a plus 33.5 point dog against Clemson. Clemson, of course, coming off a disappointing loss, 10-17, and that line steamed to 5.5 by game time, by the way. And this total sits at 51.5, and Troy comes into this game 1-0, beating Nichols State 38-20, but failing to cover. These two teams have not met since 2016. Craig, who do you like?
LSU was one of my top plays last week, so I was pretty happy how that one turned out. I actually thought, they got screwed on one touchdown. They called it back, and then they missed a field goal like 2 plays later, so it could have been even worse. I didn't think Clemson looked great. And Clemson is a big sandwich spot because next they play Georgia Tech, which I think Georgia Tech is a live underdog in that spot. So I think you're going to see Clemson get up early, pull out the starters, and just say, we got to be ready for next week. No more injuries. And Troy is always a team that is feisty. It doesn't really matter. It's one of those programs that it's kind of like a breeding ground for coaches. I think Troy will get us to cover. It will be one of those that we're going to have to nail bite at the end. And I'd wait to bet this because I think this will get steamed up to about 35. I think it'll probably go off 35. So when you're betting underdogs, I always wait. So take Troy, though, plus the points. I think they get it done. A good matchup in the SEC. Kentucky struggled last week with Toledo. Now they face the high-powered offense of course, sorry, high-powered offense of Ole Miss. Ole Miss is favored by 10 here at Kentucky, total 51.5. What do you like?
What a great game. Remember when Ole Miss lost to Kentucky last year? Man, were they pissed. They were so pissed. That was a game they never should have lost, which kind of threw them out of the playoff race, if you will, too. Ole Miss returned some stars, dude. I mean, not only that with Lane Kiffin. I'm telling you, Alabama's going to make a pitch at Lane Kiffin. It's only a matter of time. But you have Lane Kiffin here. He's in his 6th year at Ole Miss. Can you believe he's been there 6 years? I think Lane Kiffin has been a wonderful ESPN 30 for 30 story. Like he's just a story waiting to happen. He's in his 6th year. He's got a great offensive coordinator in Charlie Weiss Jr. He's got a great defensive coordinator in Pete Golding, who came from Alabama, who left Alabama once that DeBoer came in. He went over to Ole Miss. And, they got 12 returning starters, 6 on offense, 6 on defense. The only thing that I hate is that the fact that Kentucky, Mark Stoops in his 13th year, of course, and Brad White is in his 7th year as a defensive coordinator. I absolutely hate they play like dog poop against Toledo. I wish they would have beat the snot out of Toledo because then I can go with Ole Miss here. That is the one thing that kind of worries me about this game. But having said that, I can't see Lane Kiffin not getting up for this team, not getting up for this game. The only problem is Kentucky's covered back-to-back years, but Kentucky has not covered back-to-back years ever. And for that reason, I'm going with Ole Miss here. Craig, Fresno State facing Oregon State here as a +3 underdog, right? Going on the road here on a total of 47.5. This game is at 3:30. What can I tell you about Fresno State? Well, they're 1-1. They've already played 2 games so far. They lost the Kansas game, and they bounced back nicely against Georgia Southern. Really nicely. I actually thought Georgia Southern was going to win that game. And then you have Oregon State here, who comes in losing to Cal 15-34 as a 2.5-point dog. That's a game that the steaming actually worked. Cal moved in from a +3 dog to a -1 favorite by game time. Craig, who do you like?
Yeah, I like Cal in that game. Unfortunately, I did like Georgia Southern too, so I was right and wrong on these 2 teams last week. I think Oregon State's going to have a really rough year. Now, granted, they don't play the toughest schedule, so maybe they can beat up on some bad teams. I don't think everybody thought, and including me, that Fresno wasn't great because they didn't play. Maybe Kansas is good. That's the other, I thought Kansas was just going to be an average to above average team. I'm going to take that Kansas is good and that Fresno just was, kind of I think they're going to win this game. I think they're going to win outright. I don't even need the points. Give me the 3. The money line on this one, you're probably in that +130 to 140 range. I think Fresno goes on the road and beats an Oregon State team that's still, as I say, the Pac-12 is like the lost 12. It's like disband the conference, call it something different because it's not going to be ever what it was back in the day. All right, next game with a line, we got to go to Colorado. They're hosting in Delaware. Colorado lost last week, -24 here, total of 50. What do you like?
Well, Delaware State, took it to Delaware last week, and Delaware ended up winning at the end, but that was a game where Delaware didn't particularly play well. Colorado comes off getting gut punched by Georgia Tech. That was a game but Colorado ended up covering that game, by the way. In fact, that game got middled. So this is a game where Colorado comes in as a 24-point favorite. You have, Delaware, obviously, with a pretty good coach in Ryan Carty, 6-year defensive coordinator and Manny Rojas over there. Colorado, of course, has Coach Prime. He's got Pat Shermer as his offensive coordinator in his 3rd season. He's got Robert Livingston as well as his defensive coordinator. It's a very interesting game. I think what I like here in this game probably is the under. I think that Delaware has a lot of experience on defense. I think 8 or 9 returning starters on defense. I think Colorado is going to be really ticked off coming in, having lost to Georgia Tech 20-27. I think that defense shapes up here a little bit. And remember, Colorado, the last 2 games has been terrible. They gave up 36 points to BYU, now 27 points to Georgia Tech. That's not going to bode well. I like the under in this game between Colorado hooking up against Delaware. Craig, North Texas on the road against Western Michigan. North Texas coming in as a 10-point favorite on the road against Western Michigan. North Texas did beat Lamar 51-0. Western Michigan lost to Michigan State 6-23, but did cover. Who do you like, Craig?
Western Michigan didn't look good on offense. I do think that Michigan State defense is going to be not great, but above average in the Big Ten this year. So maybe you you give them a second chance a little bit. As I always said, the handicapping angle for horse racing is if you can draw a line through one. This maybe is the offensive, at least for Western Michigan, maybe you draw a line through. I just think North Texas is too much. I just think they have a little more on the offensive side of the ball. Now, I don't like the 10. So how do you find a little value in this one? I think you take the first half. I think at first half they'll be up by a touchdown plus, so it's -5, -5.5. I think that'll be safe. So let's take the first half, North Texas -5, 5.5. Use that 10% off promo code. This week's promo code to get 10% off daily, weekly, or even the full season passes for any sport. Kickoff 10. Make sure you get in on that and get in on Indian Cowboys, my play. Next game, UAB Navy. Navy -21.5. Total 60.5. What do you like here? I see.
Yeah, I like UAB. I mean, UAB is led by obviously Coach Trent Dilfer. Coach Dilfer had him to win like 3 games last year, right? And the year before, they actually, won about 4 games. So this is, this looks like to be a year where they're going to improve a little bit here. UAB comes in as a 21.5 point. I mean, they lost to Navy last year by a score of 41-18. Navy easily covered the 4.5 point spread. But, you have UAB that returns their offensive coordinator. They got a first-year defensive coordinator, but, they got Jalen Kitna, who actually was pretty decent last year. However, they only returned 1 starter on defense, to Sherrod Bryant. And you have Navy here and his coach, third-year coach Brian Newberry here with Drew Kronick and PJ Volker. It's interesting because I think that, defensively, Navy returns about 6 starters who came back and they dominated VMI. But Navy has other games, bigger fish to fry as well. After UAB, they have a date with Tulsa, which I think they're going to be looking forward to. And I think UAB played like dog poop against Alabama State when they didn't cover the 21 points. And so for this reason, I like UAB to play much better. I like them plus the 21.5 here. On to Kansas versus Missouri. You have Kansas as a 6-point dog in this Midwestern shakedown against Missouri. Both these teams are undefeated. Kansas obviously is 2-0 and beating Wagner and Fresno, and Missouri comes in 1-0 beating Central Arkansas, covering that 38.5. Who do you like, Craig?
Well, with Fresno playing really good last week, I think that win looks a lot better in week 1. It was a dominating win. I don't think Missouri's as good as what they looked last week. I think this line is way too big. And I would wait on this. You might be able to get to that 7, which this would be a lot stronger play for me if it was at 7. I think Kansas is going to have a shot to win this game right at the end. I definitely think they cover. Let's take Kansas plus the points. I think this Daniels is a super experienced quarterback. On the road, that's going to pay off. These two used to play all the time. Obviously, they haven't played since 2011. So I think Kansas gets it done here. I think they might even win this game. Next game that has a line for you is going to be Texas State. They're favored by 5 against that UTSA team that got that backdoor cover against Texas A&M. 65.5 so total. What do you like here, Arun?
Well, Texas State was my top play last week. If you remember, against Eastern Michigan, they got it done relatively easily. They returned so much talent, but the only problem for Texas State is that they beat the snot out of UTSA last year, 49-10. So keep that in mind. Then UTSA comes in. By the way, UTSA has quietly covered 6 in a row. They beat Memphis, North Texas, Temple, covered against Army, Coastal Carolina, and now Texas A&M. So they are a team that is getting definitely better. DJ Kine is such a good coach over at Texas State. I get it. They have 2 offensive starters and 3 defensive starters that return, but they really reloaded in a lot of ways. UTSA is in year 6 with Jeff Traylor, right? He's got a good quarterback. He has 11 defensive starters. All 11 defensive starters have turned over, by the way. But I think he will get these guys up and going here. I think that once they have a little bit more time with them, I like UTSA minus the 5. I think, this is a team that Texas State is a really good team. And for the fact that UTSA is favored over them despite losing in their last game, I think that says something. So I'm going to take UTSA. Craig, Miami of Ohio coming in as a 14-point dog to Rutgers on a total of 47. Miami of Ohio lost to Wisconsin 0-17 in their last game. Did cover, though. Rutgers, of course, rolls in, beating Ohio 34-13, and they did not cover that game. Who do you like here?
I think this is a tough spot for Rutgers because they looked struggled last week. I mean, they got a couple calls late that if it would have went Ohio and Ohio got the ball back, Ohio would have OU would have won that game. And I don't think Miami was as bad offensively as what, the zero looked. They had several times where they just kind of shoot themselves in the foot with penalties and stuff late. I think this is a tough spot for Rutgers to get back up because, you get all that emotion first game. They do have a kind of a bye week next week because they play Norfolk State next week, but then they play Iowa and Minnesota. I just think Miami, Ohio, this is kind of their Super Bowl. They played Wisconsin and now this. And then the next game they play, I think they have a week off and then they play UNLV. So I think this is they're going to put another scare. I think the MAC to Rutgers is probably going to be like, this won't be scheduling them again. I like the 14 points. And remember, Miami and OU are like picked the top of the MAC this year. They both were at the top last year. They're back at it again. So if they're as good as what I think they're going to be, I think this is going to be close, just like it was last week with Rutgers and OU. So that's what I like in this one. The next game for UIC is Oklahoma State and Oregon. Oklahoma State, we talked about them after a losing year, first year for Gundy. Looked better than I thought in their opener, and Oregon looked great again. Oregon, big favorite here, minus 28, total 57.5. Can Oklahoma State keep it close?
I don't like the fact that Oregon, obviously Oregon beat Montana State 59-13 in the last game. That was wild because they were only favored by 28. I was really stunned that they were not favored by more. I'm going to take Gundy here. I'm going to take Oklahoma State here. They could get blown out, but I'm going to take him here. You have Gundy here, who's in his 21st year, had a tough year last year. I think he'll get his guys going. He's got he's got Doug Meacham, who's stepping in as offensive coordinator, but he's got Todd Grantham, who's also coming in for the first year too. They have a lot of rebuilding to do, and I get that. And it does worry me that this line is 28, oh man, I've kind of been going back and forth on this too, but I also think that Oregon might just want to put the stomping on them too, to kind of prove a point here, to kind of take a team, a Power 5 team, and just beat the living snot of them. The other thing you got to keep in mind is Oregon then faces Northwestern after this, and then Oregon State. So Oklahoma State comes in, obviously they have this game, and then they have Tulsa after this too. Surprised that this total is at 57.5 as well. I do think that Gundy will have some things under his sleeve as well. I think it's a really tough game. I don't see as much value in this game at all. If you want to take something, maybe take Oklahoma State in the first half. That's about all I have on this game. I think there's more value elsewhere because I do think Oklahoma State's going to run out of gas for sure. And Oregon's going to try to run up the score at late. The question is if they're going to be able to get that 28. But I like Oklahoma State probably in the first half. Craig, West Virginia here on the road against Ohio. West Virginia only a minus 3-point favorite here with Coach Rich Rodriguez. West Virginia did win their, of course, home opener, covering against Robert Morris, winning 45-3, covering the 40. Ohio coming off that tough loss to Rutgers, but of course they played really well, losing 31-34 as a 15.5-point dog. Not to mention the fact Ohio has been one of the best covering stories of late, covering 7 of their last 8. Who do you like, Craig?
I love OU here. Athens is about 40 minutes from my Southeast Ohio house, and I pass through it every time I go back to my Cincinnati place, and I stop in. It is a very fun college town. If people that don't know, Big Party School used to be the number 1 rated party school pretty much every year. Navarro is really good. This kid, the dual threat quarterback, I think he's going to give this defense of West Virginia fits. I think it's one of those games you don't even mess with the points. You take OU and you take the over. Parlay them together, pay you a nice little 3-1 plus. I think they win the game, and I think this is a very high-scoring game. I think both teams probably get into the high 20s, low 30s, will get us the over. And, I was thinking like 35-31 win by OU and the over. So that's what I like, a little parlay action, messing with OU on the money line. Next game, Middle Tennessee State at Wisconsin. Wisconsin, I don't know if this team they might not score 28 points. I don't know how they're 28.5-point favorite, total 45.5. What do you like here?
Oh man, I'm surprised Wisconsin has stuck with this coach for so long, with Coach Luke Fickell, to be honest with you. You have the Blue Raiders here with head coach Derek Mason. Bodie Reeder comes back as their offensive coordinator. Brian Stewart here as well. I thought that Middle Tennessee State was, in their first game, they lost to Austin Peay 14-34. That's a bad loss, dude. As a 15-point favorite, Wisconsin playing like dog poop as well. Once again, winning 17-0 as a 17.5-point chalk. I do think they probably end up covering this game, believe it or not, because I think at some point Wisconsin needs to cover the game. Everybody in Wisconsin knows the line on games. So I think if there's a chance for them to cover, it's probably this game here. I'm not so high on Derek Mason as well. Wisconsin, at the end of the day, needs a big blowout win. They have third-year defensive coordinator Mike Tressel as well. They have 9 starters in total, 4 on offense. I think Wisconsin is going to score points. It's going to be against this team. Middle Tennessee State gave up 34 points to Austin Peay, for God's sake. So I think Wisconsin could put up 40 themselves. I'm going to back Wisconsin here. As far as South Florida hooking up against Florida, Craig, obviously 2 schools in Florida. Florida comes in as a 17-point favorite. South Florida, that big win against Boise State, 34-7 as a 4.5-point dog. Florida looked impressive too, beating LIU 55-0. Granted, it's LIU. Craig, Florida has now won 5 in a row dating back to last year, and some of those wins include Ole Miss, LSU, FSU, Tulane, and LIU. Who do you like?
I'm shocked this line isn't off that 17 number. I thought it would be like 16 and a half, because everybody and their brother remembers. That was the early game on Thursday last week to open up week 1. And they stomped Boise State. Of course, Boise State coming off a playoff appearance there. I think this is one of those, the public still maybe is not in on USF. It wasn't a fluke. It wasn't like they won on the last play of the game. They dominated Boise State. I know Florida's good, but when you're in the SEC, you don't care. All you want to do is win and move on and get to your conference, because it's a gauntlet. And guess who they play next week, Florida? LSU, coming off that huge win at Clemson. So to me, this is a look-ahead spot for Florida. You take South Florida. This is kind of their Super Bowl. You play your in-state team that, a lot of these players probably weren't good enough to play at, according to Florida. Give me South Florida plus the 17. Arkansas State and Arkansas, Battle of Arkansas here. Arkansas favored by 23.5, total 64. What do you like here?
It's funny because these two teams have never met, which is the wildest thing. They've never met. And then you have Arkansas State here, who coming off that nice win against Southeastern Missouri is 42-24. This is a dangerous game for Arkansas, okay? Because Arkansas State, as I've always told you, the Red Wolves is a place, it's a breeding ground. It might be the top breeding ground for coaches, for Power 5 schools to go poach them. Arkansas comes off that nice win, 52-7 in their last game. They did not cover the 47.5 against Alabama A&M. So I think it's an interesting game. I think that you have to look at what Arkansas has on deck here, because they have much bigger fish to fry. They do have Ole Miss sitting in the pipeline after this game. And I think this game means a lot more to Arkansas State than obviously it does to Arkansas. So I think one thing you have to look at is that Arkansas State has, when you look at their returning starters too, first of all, only 30% of the public is backing them, right? And you have head coach Butch Jones, Butch Jones used to coach at Tennessee, if you remember. You have a offensive coordinator that's in his 7th year. You have a defensive coordinator that's stepping in his 1st year. Arkansas State had a major roster overhaul as well. The Razorbacks have Sam Pittman. He's in his 6th year. He's got 8 defensive starters coming back, which is pretty good. He's got 4 on offense. But I got to tell you, man, I think Arkansas State's going to get up for this game, and they're going to travel well for this game too. I'm going to back Arkansas State plus the 23.5. Craig, Missouri State here on the road against Marshall. Missouri State, a 9.5-point underdog coming in on a total of 57. Both these teams lost their opening game. And Missouri State lost a cool 13-73 against against USC. Not bad at all. Missouri State, not bad at all. Marshall, of course, losing 7-45 against Georgia. But by the way, they did cover. Marshall, by the way, has covered 6 in a row coming in. Marshall was also on a 7-game winning streak coming into that game, and now they covered this game too. Who do you like? Oh, Craig, did I lose your voice there?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Anytime you lose your opener like these two did, you don't have a lot of confidence in the next game if you're better. But whatever Marshall did last year, throw out the window. They ran their coach out of town after winning the conference championship. Like that tells you something. He wanted to stay there, and they did not give him a contract extension, so then he leaves to go to Southern Miss. And he took a lot of players with him. There's no way I'm taking Marshall anytime soon. They have so many I know last week was ugly. I get it. I mean, Missouri State was terrible last week. but I'm taking the 9.5 here. I think they're a live underdog. I just think Marshall team's going to be bad this year, and this is going to be one of those games where you just scratch your head. Next game we're looking at, we got to go to the 7 o'clock slate of games, Army and Kansas State. And by the way, if you have any of these other games that you like and there's lines pop up later in the week, put them in the comments if you want to know what we like, and we'll give you all a quick analysis, as long as it's, of course, not a play, one of our premium plays. Kansas State at home here against this Army team. Army lost last week to Tarleton State. That was a shocker. Kansas State favored by 17, total of 46.5. Kansas State hasn't looked great either. What do you like?
Army, I got to tell you, Jeff Monken is sitting in his 12th year now, and Nate Woody comes back as a 6th-year defensive coordinator. They returned 11 of 12 defensive starters, which is pretty phenomenal. And then you have the Kansas State Wildcats here, who have Chris Kleiman, obviously Matt Wells, and Joe Klanderman, doing good things too. Defensively, Austin Romaine is obviously anchors this team. And he had almost 100 tackles last year. So when you take a look at this game, I think this is a game that Army can probably do well. I like the fact that Army comes off a loss to Tarleton State, 27-30. They were 14-point favorites. They just didn't play well. I like the fact that Kansas State comes off a win against North Dakota. But let me tell you something. They barely won that game, 38-35, and they were 27.5-point favorites. Kansas State has been a horrible cover. They have lost 8 of their last 10 covers coming in. Army, of course, they lost to Tarleton State 27-30 in a game where they were up 17-10 at the half, and then they lost in overtime 6-3. They're going to be super pissed coming in. What sucks for Army is that they outplayed this team. I mean, they had 280 yards on the ground, and they still ended up losing this game. I think when you put it together, you're probably going to have – I'm going to back Army here. I think they're going to show up after losing as a 14-point favorite in their last game.
Don't forget, like and subscribe and turn on the bell to make sure you don't miss out on all the great content we do here.
Craig, Houston rolls in as a 12.5-point favorite over Rice on the road, total of 39.5. Of course, Houston is 1-0 after a nice win against Stephen F. Austin, covering the 23.5. Rice, of course, comes off a shocking win against Louisiana Lafayette, 14-12, as a 10-point dog, and they win outright. And then they also won South Florida last year. They, of course, have a new coach as well. Who do you like, Craig?
I think Houston will have the home field advantage, even though it's at Rice. Houston travels pretty well. It's an in-state game here. This Rice team, I think, is going to be up against it. And Willie Fritz, you have to trust what he does. Look what he did at Tulane. I think he's going to do the same thing. I do think this year they're going to be the middle of the pack team in the Big 12, but the middle of the pack teams will stomp a Rice team pretty much every time out, especially when you're going to have a fan base edge here. So give me Houston minus 12.5. I think they take care of business. Next game, Memphis at Georgia State. Memphis 13.5-point favorite, total of 54. What do you like here, Icy?
Well, I think you have obviously 2018 happened when these two teams last met. So they haven't met since then. Memphis, of course, comes in clobbering Chattanooga 45-10 in their last game opener. And they've covered 4 in a row. They beat West Virginia, Tulane, and UAB going back. And then you have Georgia State coming in losing 7-63 against Ole Miss. And Ole Miss did not take it easy on them at all. Memphis has a coach in his 6th year in Ryan Silverfield. Got a pretty good offensive coordinator in his 4th year. And then, you have a lot of guys that came back on the offensive side of the ball. They had 5 starters come back on the offense side of the ball, but they have a lot of junior transfers that came in that did, added depth to this team. You have Georgia State here. The roster includes 41 returning players, which is pretty darn good. Not that it helped against Ole Miss. But having said that, I think what will happen here is when you get clobbered by that margin, against, in your last game, I think that's going to impact you. I think this team will play a little bit better here too. Memphis also has, after this Georgia State game, Memphis has Troy coming up, which I think is something of interest because Troy's a pretty good team. They have Arkansas after that. I'm going to take a small lean here on Georgia State, although I'm not in love with it. I do think this game might go under. I think Georgia State's going to get a lot better on defense this week, which is why that total is only 54, which is basically more points than what they gave up last week. So my first lean here is on the under in this game. Small lean on Georgia State, but really I like the under. Craig, Western Kentucky on the road here against Toledo. Western Kentucky is a 7-point dog on a total of 58.5. Western Kentucky, of course, is 2-0. They beat, they won their last game 55-6 and then beat Sam Houston State. So back-to-back covers for them. Toledo, impressive game against Kentucky as a 10-point dog. A lot of people are on Toledo in that game, and they were able to cover. Toledo beat Pittsburgh as well as the game prior last year, and they covered this one. Who do you like, Craig?
Toledo is top 3 team in the MAC, and I think the MAC's going to be pretty good this year. We saw how good they did last week. It's a tough Western Kentucky team, though, because Western Kentucky can score some points. And Toledo would rather play a little tighter game, a little lower scoring games. I like Toledo's defense better. I like Western Kentucky's offense slightly better. I think this is one of them you play up. This is like a correlated parlay type game. If you like Western Kentucky, you take the over. If you like Toledo, you take the under. I think I'm taking Western Kentucky in the over. As much as I liked Toledo last week, was a game I really liked. I think this week is it's a huge letdown type game. It's like you got up for Kentucky now. I think having your third game in 3 weeks is a positive at this point in the season, because I think you work things out you make those adjustments after each week. I think Western Kentucky's maybe could sneak up on here, and I think they score a bunch of points to keep them in the game. Next game that has a line, that is, of course, like I said, if you have a question on these games that don't have lines, put them in the comments, and we'll tell you what we think. Tulane at South Alabama. Tulane looked good last week. Tulane -10, total 51.5. I kind of thought Tulane might get beat by Northwestern. They stomped Northwestern. What do you like here?
Yeah, I thought that a lot of people thought that Northwestern was going to hang tough against him, and that was not the case. I'm not as high on Tulane as other people are. I know Tulane beat Northwestern 23-3, and that's great. But South Alabama has Major Applewhite as their coach, and he's really trying to turn that program around. It's a team that I thought really closed last year pretty well. They beat Louisiana Lafayette. They beat Southern Miss. They lost to Texas State by just 7 points. South Alabama's got a pretty vibey fan base as well. They're only backed by 24% of the plugs. Most people don't understand who South Alabama is. Again, Major Applewhite is there. Paul Petrino is in his first year as offensive coordinator, is trying to prove something there too. Tulane doesn't return a ton of guys back. They were only returning 5 guys back in total. I'm going to take a shot here on South Alabama plus the 10. I think they hang tough against Tulane. I think it's a team that has a lot of continuation as well, and I wouldn't be surprised if South Alabama hangs tough at all. Craig, UNC comes off that barn burner where they got destroyed by TCU in the opener, which is a game that you and I, sort of talked about. And I mentioned that North Carolina, I'm not big on them, and I think TCU is going to roll them. And then you have North Carolina come in as a 14-point favorite on the road at Charlotte. Man, if this game is even somewhat close, people are going to be looking for Bill Belichick's head. But I think it's going to be a dangerous spot because Charlotte is not a bad team. Charlotte lost to App State 11-34 in their last game, of course. And the line is eerily interesting. North Carolina did beat this team 38-20 last year. Who do you like, Craig?
In-game adjustments and week-to-week adjustments was kind of Coach Belichick's magic, so you have to give him the edge, obviously, and talent. They had 70 guys, new guys. So, there was a lot to ask to even stay with them. I think that TCU team's really good. I think they're going to be the top 4 team in the league. And I don't think that loss is going to look that bad at the end of the year. Now, on paper, with the spread, of course, it did. But, sometimes it gets out of hand. You just, you lost. Doesn't matter if you lose by 40 or 10. It's still a loss. I think UNC has to blow them out just for the fan base type. And I think Belichick gets it right here. I know it's a short week. That's the big worry for me. They played on Monday. Now they have to travel. I do think UNC will have all the fans. Give me North Carolina -14. Not a big play, though. Be careful on this one. Arizona State at Mississippi State. Maybe one of the more hidden, the hidden gem of the week here. This Arizona State team, I think, is really good again after the playoff last year. Arizona's favored by 6.5 at Mississippi State in the SEC. Can they do it here? Total 59. What do you like?
Well, Arizona State beat them 30-23 last year at home. So they beat them by a touchdown last year at home. And Arizona State comes off a 38-19 win against Northern Arizona. They didn't cover the 30.5, by the way. Mississippi State beat Southern Miss 34-17. They also covered that game. They played pretty well against Ole Miss, and they covered that game as well. You have a Mississippi State team that could be turning things around very slowly. I think Arizona State's really good. I think raw wins wise, they're going to do really, really well this year. Are they going to sneak up on people? Probably not. I think everybody knows how good they are. But I'll tell you something. They returned 9 of their 11 defensive starters, which is very impressive. They were able to retain so many guys. And you have offensively, you got 4 returning offensive linemen as well. Jeff Lebby in his second year. And, we're going to see what he's made of, right? The Bulldogs bring back 16 starters, 9 on offense, 7 on defense. That's pretty darn good. And I'm going to take a shot here. I'm going to take a shot here on Mississippi State. I thought they played above their weight last year, and I think they're even more experienced this year. And I think Mississippi State plus the 6.5-point dog. And I know Arizona State will want to prove something to the SEC here on the road. But Mississippi State has direct revenge, and I thought they closed somewhat decent last year.
Yep.
Covering against Ole Miss and covering, they were horrible to start off with. I mean, they were just so bad. And then they've covered 7 of their last 9 games to close out. I'm going to back Mississippi State here plus the 6.5. Will it be on my card? No, I'm not going against an Arizona State team. I'm just not doing it, especially when they didn't cover last week. But small lean on Mississippi State here. Craig, Akron rolls in. Here's a 34-point dog to Nebraska. Of course, Akron comes off, losing 0-10 against Wyoming in the game that I told you about. I thought Wyoming would do pretty well. Nebraska, of course, won 20-17 against Cincinnati, and that game got steamed up to -6. And Nebraska did not cover. These two teams have never met. Who do you like?
Tough spot for Akron. I mean, they were not good last week against the Wyoming team that I think is going to be at best about a 500 team this year. And you had them at home. Now you got to travel against the Nebraska team. Nebraska is not a look-ahead spot because they got Holy Cross. Then they have Michigan and Michigan State. But, it's not a look-ahead spot. First half, I love them in the first half -20. I think they're going to be up 3 touchdowns or more. I do think maybe late they pull off put in the second, third, maybe, some of the fourth guys. I think that in the first half, they absolutely dominate. I was thinking 28-1, 28-3, 28-0 type of thing. I think they cover the first half. Next game, BC at Michigan State. Michigan State's favored by 3.5. They did look better than I thought, especially on defense. Total 45.5. What do you like here?
Well, BC beat Fordham 66-10, covering the 35-point line. BC is actually playing very well under the radar right now. They've covered 6 of the last 7. Michigan State, of course, rolls in, beating Western Michigan 23-6. But Michigan State has not been good at covering games. They've lost their last 6 straight covers as well. Head-to-head, these two teams played last year, and BC beat them 23-19. If you remember, BC only coming in as a 3.5-point dog. Despite that, second-year coach Bill O'Brien is over at BC. It's easy to forget where Bill O'Brien has been. Where in the world is Bill O'Brien? He's constantly moving around from place to place. He's got Tim Lewis, obviously, as well as the DC. Eagles bring back 12 starters, 5 on offense, 7 on defense. Pretty good. Look, Boston College is not going to be outcoached by anybody. They got a guy that's been everywhere. He's seen everything. So he's not going to be intimidated by everybody either. So that's a great hire for Boston College, similar to what Bobby Petrino is for, in Arkansas and elsewhere. Being the OC there. So I think what you have is a lot of these older coaches that go and find a home, similar to Greg Schiano at Michigan State or at Rutgers as well. Now you have Michigan State here. Coach Jonathan Smith comes in. He returns, 9 key starters, 5 on offense, 4 on defense. I am not a fan of what Michigan State is doing. I'm a big fan of what Boston College is doing. I think Boston College is a live dog. I like them plus the 3.5. I thought they were really good against Fordham. Dude, don't forget, Boston College has Stanford as well on deck. Boston College is sneaky good right now, man. They beat UNC. They beat Pittsburgh recently. They beat Syracuse. They barely lost to Louisville last year by 4 points. I like Boston College. I would even take Boston College -1. I like Boston College here. As it relates to Vanderbilt, +1 dog against Virginia Tech. That might surprise you here. Vanderbilt coming in as winning 45-3 against Charleston Southern, but maybe it shouldn't surprise you. Vanderbilt obviously beat Alabama last year, or a couple years ago when Nick Saban was there. That was the year that they were slowly turning things around. You have Virginia Tech here, who comes off back-to-back, or they lost to South Carolina 11-24 in a game that a lot of people thought Virginia Tech would cover, but they didn't cover that game. Again, Vandy only a +1 dog. Who do you like, Craig?
Vandy. I think Vandy. They got to win this one because they have South Carolina next, and South Carolina's for real. I think they probably lose that one. So, they're not, used to be Vandy just wanted to make a bowl game. Vandy, like whispering, oh, we think we can make a shot, maybe an outside chance to make the playoffs. You look at their schedule and it's like, okay, maybe that's a little too much. But I think this is a game that is, where it has the program came. You go on the road and win at Virginia Tech, which is a very tough place to play. In Blacksburg, I think they do it. That Pavetta kid is for real. I don't know why. I mean, supposedly they threw around $2, $3, $4 million, some other SEC and Big Ten teams, and he wasn't interested. So I like that because you go back, you have that confidence. I think they go on the road here and win this game. I don't think Virginia Tech. I think they're going to struggle on offense. What we saw last week against South Carolina, I don't think there's going to be something that goes away.
And I want to tell you something here too. I really like your angle on this because a degree from Vanderbilt is worth more than $2, $3, $4 million in the course of a lifetime. You know what I mean? So
this kid's going to be playing in the NFL. I don't think money's going to be an issue.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that coach is good, dude. That coach is real good. So,
although we've seen Vandy, Mason, when he was there, like they have their peak. It goes up and down right away.
Don't talk about Derek Mason. Derek Mason, he's just nice guy, but he's, let him be happy with, where is he at? Middle Tennessee State, let him be happy over there. But this other coach, that's the coach who Alabama needs to go after.
You might. We'll see what happens with Alabama this year. But next game we're looking at, the LSU could be coming off the biggest win of week one. There's a couple teams that are vying for that, but LSU great. LSU's minus 38 against Louisiana Tech here to open up at home here. Total 51.5. What do you like?
Well, LSU beat Southeastern Louisiana 24-0, and they have covered about 6 of 7 coming in. Or I should say Louisiana Tech beat Southeastern Louisiana 24-0 and it's covered 6 of 7 coming in. LSU, of course, LSU has won 4 in a row, Craig. They beat Vanderbilt, they beat Oklahoma, they beat Baylor, they beat Clemson. They've covered 3 in a row. Brian Kelly was absolutely coaching for his job. If they lost another home opener, I think there would have been a riot in Baton Rouge. They're coming in as a 38-point favorite. I think they cover here. They know the line. You know what I mean? LSU, they know the line, and Louisiana Tech people know the line. So I don't think I don't think there's any surprise here. These two teams haven't met since 6 years. These Southern teams want to make sure who's the little brother or who's not even considered in the same league and all of that stuff. So then Louisiana Tech is not a bad team. Head coach is Sonny Cumbie in his 4th year. Tony Franklin and Luke Olson over there as the as sort of the offensive defensive coordinator. I will tell you this: Louisiana Tech returns 53 players. So kind of the more I think about it too, though, it is hard to ignore the fact that Louisiana Tech, covered against Jacksonville State and Western Kentucky and Arkansas losing 14-35 and Kennesaw State beating 30-0. A lot of these kids wanted to be over at LSU as well. I think LSU is obviously going to be really excited after that huge win against Clemson. I can totally see them looking ahead to Florida as well. I'm going to surprise you. I'm going to back Louisiana Tech. Okay, I like Louisiana Tech plus the points here. I just think LSU, there was a lot of drinking going on there the last couple of days. They might not even be sober by Saturday morning comes around. So I'm going to take Louisiana Tech here. Take a moment and sign up for YouTube Premium. That is the edge. I call it the edge. That is the edge. If you're really looking to get ahead and really looking for the edge, that's how you do it. For $4.99, you get Lenny's extra video every single day with his selections. For $19.99, you get my extra YouTube Premium video with 5 extra selections every single day, an extra video, and 2 live shows a week as well, usually on Thursday and Friday nights. And you get Lenny's with it too. And then on top of that, if you end up getting the $49.99 one where you get Craig's packages, in other words, you get Craig's YouTube Premium content. He normally puts 1 premium selection on his video and gives other premium Doc Sports handicappers too. Each one is worth $30, so you get $90 worth of content, all for just $50 a month. Oh yeah, by the way, if you get that $50 one, you also get my channel and you get Lenny's as well. That's the edge. As it relates to Ball State hooking up against Auburn, Ball State coming in as a 42-point dog. Hugh Freeze winning a monster game in Baylor. Ball State losing 0-31 against Purdue. Auburn coming in winning that game last game. Who do you like, Greg?
Yeah, Hugh Freeze, that was like a job-saving type win at Baylor to open the year. They also get the extra day's rest. Of course, they played on Friday, I believe, right? Yeah, Friday. So I like this. Ball State looked really bad last week. Now, laying 42 is never something I would ever suggest, but this is your option. You want to lay 42? I would take the under. I think Ball State might not score. I also think the Ball State under for their team total. I don't think they get a touchdown. I think they might get a field goal. So I would lay Auburn, but I think the stronger play, you'd take the under 53.5. I think this could be like 49-0 type game. That's just the type of game I think it's going to be. All right, next game, really good game. Michigan, Oklahoma. Both of these teams, I think, are teams that are young and improving and need this win. Because if you look at the schedules for both these teams, they got 3 losses elsewhere. So if you lose this one, for Michigan or Oklahoma, 4 losses is like, they want your freaking job. That's just the way that it is, the new college football. Oklahoma's favored by 6, total 45.5. What do you like here?
I'm going to take Oklahoma, and it's not just because I'm butthurt because Michigan keeps beating Alabama. Oklahoma beat Alabama too. Everybody beats us at this point. I mean, Oklahoma beats us. Michigan beats us. Florida State beats us at this point. What are you going to do? But you have Michigan team here who beat New Mexico 34-17 in their last game. They did pretty well. I just hate going against this Michigan coach, Sharon Moore. He's just been phenomenal, dude. What else more do you want from him? He's winning some of the big games. He beat Northwestern to close out. He beat Ohio State, and then he beat Alabama, winning the last three. So they are on a 3-game winning streak. But this is going to be a tough game. Oklahoma is going to be up in this game, and they're going to get up for this game. And, they beat Illinois State 35-3, which is fine. But I will tell you this. Oklahoma closed out the year, beating Alabama. But I'm really shocked that they're favored by 6. But I think the difference in this game is Oklahoma's defense is actually quite good. Venables is a defensive type of guy. I would not be surprised at all if this is a weird type of game. I want you to notice the total sitting around 45.5. I have this feeling that this game is going to be like something like 24-17, like this ugly game where Oklahoma ends up winning by a touchdown and Michigan fails to cover. I know that I see some places where 54% is on Oklahoma. I don't think that's right at all. I actually think a lot more people are on Michigan than they are on Oklahoma. So I'm going to back Oklahoma here minus the points. Craig, Georgia Southern facing USC here. Georgia Southern coming in as a 27.5-point dog. It had a terrible opener. 18% of the public backing Georgia Southern, 82% of the public backing USC as a 27.5-point favorite. Maybe Southern was looking ahead to USC, dude. That's the only reason why Southern lost so badly, 14-42. USC, of course, beating Missouri State 73-13, which makes you wonder, what is USC compensating for trying to destroy this team like this? There's absolutely no reason to do it when you have so many upcoming games like Purdue and stuff. So the question that everyone needs to ask is, what is USC compensating for, and who are they compensating for? I have no reason why you beat the poor Missouri State Bears 73-13. It makes no sense at all. What do you think, Craig, between these two teams?
Maybe we were a week early last week. We liked them against Fresno State last week. One of my favorite handicapping angles is when a team just doesn't show up and gets beat, and you like them, you give them another shot the next week, because usually you're getting extra points, because they didn't look good. And then you get it so that USC ran up the score. So now this line is probably inflated by at least a field goal, maybe even, 4 points. So I'm going to take Georgia Southern plus the points. USC didn't have a whole lot of worry last week because, you're playing Georgia Southern this week. But there is that worry because they have Purdue, I think Michigan State, and Illinois the next 3 weeks. So they have some big games coming up. I think they get up early, put in the backups. I think Georgia Southern keeps it within the points. Not a huge play for me because obviously Georgia Southern didn't look great last week, but I think the handicapping angle is to go back to the well this week. Louisiana Monroe at Alabama. Alabama didn't look good. Like, they jumped out to the lead, and then they just didn't look good the rest of the game. Alabama's favored by 37.5, total 51. Does DeBoer just put them behind the woodshed?
Yeah, it's interesting because if you know Alabama football, you know that Nick Saban lost to Louisiana Monroe. Right, it was his marquee loss that turned the program around. So Alabama, the faithful, if you listen to the forums and the blogs and stuff, they're like, well, it took a loss from Louisiana Monroe to turn us around. Louisiana Monroe is such an important part of our fabric in Alabama because Louisiana Monroe is always woven in somehow. And I think this is a wake-up moment for Kalen DeBoer. And I know this sounds, ridiculous, but Kalen DeBoer, not only has to win this game, but has to win this game by a wide margin, or else people are going to be pissed. So you have a Florida State team. Look, the Florida State quarterback is talking a lot of crap. Look, he went 9 for 14 for 152 yards. Shut up. Whatever. He's talking all this smack about Alabama, whatever. You went 9 for 14. Your head coach doesn't even trust you to make you throw the ball 15 times, okay? And then you have Alabama here, Ty Simpson, obviously, still under he's still a little green. He didn't throw an interception though. Alabama did pass for 254 yards. But yeah, obviously they just got pummeled on the line. They just gave up 230 rushing yards, and losing, Bam, I think really hurts Alabama too. And obviously you have a wide receiver that's hurt too. But he's, you're going to go with Ty Simpson as well. They still have a pretty strong offensive line. They just got destroyed on the defensive line. I think that's the difference. You have Louisiana Monroe, who has a second-year coach here. But I just think you have to – this is one of those games where if Alabama had beaten FSU, I don't think they would have covered this game. But now that Alabama lost FSU, I think they need to cover this game. And I'm going to lean on Alabama here. So, Craig, moving on here from the Alabama game as we move on to UCLA versus UNLV. UCLA coming in as a 2.5-point favorite on the road at UNLV. We've talked a lot about UNLV and Dan Mullen so far. Total sits at 54. UCLA comes off that loss to Utah, ugly loss, 10-43. UNLV coming off, nice wins, Idaho State and Sam Houston. But surprisingly, they come in as a dog here. Who do you like?
I think UNLV should be favored. I think UCLA is just, first of all, that Nico guy. Like, there's something not right about that guy. He's just not. It doesn't look like his leadership. Like a quarterback, sometimes you struggle, but like the leadership, you can always depend on. I just don't know if that's his gig. And UNLV, they're loaded. They're loaded again. People gave them hell because the first week, like they didn't play so well. It's like they just played good enough to win. Last week we saw it was actually a much wider margin, really, with that final score. If you watched any of that game, UNLV looked really good. I think I don't want to stomp, but I think they dominate the stats in this game. Maybe UCLA gets a turnover, keeps it close or something, but I think UNLV wins outright. I'm not even taking the points. I'm taking a money line. Let's take UNLV to win outright. I also think it's probably going to be a little higher scoring than even the 54 suggests. Next game, we're looking at Tulsa, New Mexico State. Obviously not the greatest of games. Tulsa minus 3.5, total 52.5. IC, what do you like here?
Well, Tulsa, they played Abilene Christian and beating them 35-7 on a total of, on a line of 5.5, easily covering that game. New Mexico State beating Bryant 19-3 as well. Both these teams are 1-0. New Mexico State, by the way, did not cover their game. So when you come into this game, Tulsa comes in as a 3.5-point favorite on a total of 52.5. Tulsa has new leadership. Obviously, Trey Lamb taking over this team. They look pretty good in their last game. The offensive line, has 4 new starters as well. New Mexico State here comes in with Joe Morris, comes back a couple of defensive key starters to be had. I will tell you this about Tulsa. Tulsa, they closed out last year. Obviously, this is a team that lost to FAU, lost to USF, lost to ECU. They were ugly. So, this is a game that I think Tulsa has the better offensive outlook in this game. New Mexico State, this is a team that beat Louisiana Tech and Middle Tennessee, but really struggled to close out different parts of last year. They did lose to UTEP 35-42, but one thing that's always they've done well is their offense. It's hard for me to take a side on this game because I'm still not sure. I think Tulsa with their new coach probably gets it done. I do like the total of over 52.5. I think both these teams' strength is their offensive side of the ball, and the coach's strength is offensive side of the ball. I'm going to the over here. Craig, San Diego State facing Washington State here. San Diego State coming in as a 1-point dog on a total of 45. Who do you like here?
I think a lot of this has to do with how poorly Washington State played last week, barely beating Idaho. San Diego State obviously won in a big margin against Stony Brook, but put an asterisk by both of those. It's first game of the year. I think Washington State should probably be a 3 to 6 point favorite. That's where I was setting this line. It's like I just think you're getting a ton of value here. So I'm going to take Washington State for that reason, pretty much only. I just think people are overreacting of how they played last week and probably overreacting how good San Diego State looked as far as the in margin. So small lean, Washington State minus the points. Next game, I think could be a better game than people think. I think Stanford is going to continue to improve throughout the year. And this is a good BYU team. So, but at BYU is always tough. BYU is favored by 18, total 47. What do you like here?
Yeah, I like Stanford. I think Frank Wright got his feet wet here in college football. I think you have Stanford still has talent, 5 on offense, 6 on defense. BYU beat them 2 years ago as well. BYU, of course, has a coach that's been here, 10 years. And you have a BYU team that has, which is interesting, a true freshman, Bear Backmeyer, who's a Stanford transfer, by the way, was named the QB starter for the opener too. So maybe he has something to prove. But I think the team of Stanford here has something to prove here, right? You got a team here in Stanford, I think just a bad loss opening game. And I think they're going to have to try to bounce back. And BYU winning 69-0 in their last game. I think that's going to be a little bit of a letdown after that huge win. And I just think Stanford at the end of the day plays their heart out. I wouldn't be surprised if this game probably goes under the posted total either, but I'm going to back Stanford here, but it won't be on my card. Craig, let's close it out here with Sam Houston State against Hawaii. Sam Houston State, of course, rolls in, losing to UNLV 21-38, and they were a 9-point dog. They're 0-2. They lost to Western Kentucky, lost that cover too. Hawaii, of course, got throttled by Arizona. That was on my card. Hawaii lost 6-40 after beating Stanford, which makes that Stanford look even worse now. But having said all of that, between Sam Houston State and Hawaii, total of 49 on a Hawaii favored by 7.5. What do you like?
Injuries is the big question here. The quarterback for the Micah Aladu, I think is his name, the quarterback, young quarterback, injured his foot in the opener, limped through, and it was kind of like a Brian Leftwich type moment where he, led the drive down the end and they kicked the field goal to beat Stanford. He did not look good last week. They ended up having to take him out late. He just was I think they have to set him this week because if you look at their schedule, they have a pretty tough schedule. So it's like you end up, I think they can win this game without him. But if you ended up not playing, or if he's playing and gets hurt and he's out 4 or 5 weeks, the season could be lost. So to me, I think you take Sam Houston. I think will cover. I think it's going to be right at that number. I think they'll probably win Hawaii between 3 and 6 points. Sam Houston covers against what I think will probably be a backup quarterback. You might want to wait till the very end to bet this game just in case. Now, before we let you go, don't forget, make sure you get in on all of our plays. You can get our top plays of the week. Go to get Kickoff 10, save you 10% off. You can buy the week pass for football for it's $99. That gets you college football and the NFL from either one of us. Make sure you go over there and buy that. Use that, so it ends up being $89. And I'm going to have 8-9 plays. IC's going to have 6 plays throughout all the football, so make sure you get in on those. Less than $200, you get both of our plays for the week, so make sure you check it out. All right, guys, have a great day. Don't forget, hit that thumbs up, and if you want to check out college football, all the other videos we have right here, and NFL as well. Good luck.